Most people think depth is something you can see, measure, or touch. They imagine it as something physical, external. But real depth, the kind I'm speaking about, the kind that exists in a fully awakened woman, isn't physical at all. It's psychological, it's emotional, it's spiritual, and that kind of depth is rare, not because it's hidden, but because most people don't know how to look for it, or hold it when they find it. A woman's depth isn't in her body, it's in her mind, in her silence, in her ability to feel everything and still choose grace, in her patience when she's misunderstood, in the way she listens not just to what's said, but to what's unsaid. This depth has layers of lived experience, of brokenness turned into wisdom, of softness preserved in a world that demands hardness. It's the kind of presence that stops you, not because she's trying to impress, but because her energy carries something ancient, something sacred, something that can't be faked. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people, especially men, never truly access that depth. Not because she's cold or distant, but because the world has taught her to protect herself, to be selective with her truth, to offer her heart only to those who have done the work to hold it with care. This isn't about ego, it's about survival. It's about sovereignty. It's about not bleeding in front of people who will call the wound dramatic, or worse, use it against her. There's a misconception that emotionally deep women are complicated. The reality is they are clear, painfully clear. What complicates things is the world's inability to meet them at their level. She asks questions that make others uncomfortable, not because she wants control, but because she craves connection. She doesn't settle for surface-level conversations, small talk, or performance. She wants truth, realness, depth. But most people are terrified of depth because depth requires vulnerability. It requires presence. It requires slowing down. And in a society built on speed, distraction, and superficiality, a woman who dares to ask for more is often labeled too much, too intense, too sensitive. But let me ask you, how can truth ever be too much? How can self-awareness or a longing to be seen be a flaw? It only feels like too much to those who have grown comfortable with too little. And that's why only a small percentage of men, 2%, maybe even less, ever get to experience a woman in her fullness. Because most aren't ready. Most don't even recognize the invitation when it's offered. And that's the tragic part. Because a deep woman doesn't open slowly. She opens fully. If she senses safety, she lets you into a world most people never even knew existed. A world where feelings aren't filtered, where love is expansive, where silence speaks louder than words. But if she senses emotional immaturity, if she picks up on manipulation or avoidance, she closes, not with anger, but with clarity, with finality, and most will call her cold. But the truth is, she was never truly met to begin with. To connect with a woman like this, it's not enough to desire her. You have to deserve her, not in a transactional way, but in a soul-level readiness way. You have to have faced your own shadows. You have to be able to sit in discomfort without numbing it, listen without needing to fix, hold space without making it about you. This isn't about perfection, it's about presence. Are you present enough to stay with her through the tides of emotion? Are you grounded enough to not get swept up in her fire, but also not run from it? Because make no mistake, this woman is fire. She is ocean and thunder and moonlight and storm. She is softness forged in trial, grace that has known pain, wisdom carved out of heartbreak. And to touch her soul is to be transformed. But you will never get close to that if you only engage her body, if you only feed her ego, if you only show up halfway. She is not looking for attention. She is looking for resonance, alignment, truth. So when I say depth isn't physical, I mean that it can't be reduced to appearance or sexuality. The true essence of a woman's depth lies in her asterisk being asterisk, and that being is often misunderstood, not because it's flawed, but because it's rare. Not because it's hidden, but because it's sacred. And here's what's wild. She's not waiting for someone to find her. She's already found herself. She doesn't need asterisk to be discovered. She needs to be recognized. The men who have done the inner work will recognize her. Not because she's loud or flashy, but because energy doesn't lie. They'll feel it, in her stillness, in her gaze, in her words that cut through illusion like a blade. They'll know they're not speaking to a girl playing roles, but a woman living in her truth. Let that sink in. She's not asking to be worshipped. She's asking to be asterisk, witnessed asterisk. That's it. To be seen without being reduced. To be loved without being controlled. To be understood without having to shrink. And so I leave you with this. If you want to experience the depth of a powerful woman, don't search her body, search her soul. Don't ask what she offers, ask what you can hold, because depth isn't given to those who chase it with empty hands. It's given to those who arrive with open hearts, steady minds, and the courage to see her not as a mystery to solve, but as a universe to honor. That's the kind of depth the world is starving for, and only the few ever truly see it. Be one of the few. Intimacy is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human connection. We've been conditioned to confuse proximity with closeness, physical access with emotional availability, and attention with understanding. But the truth is, real intimacy, the kind that reaches beyond skin and into soul, is incredibly rare, especially when it comes to women who carry depth, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence, because for them, intimacy isn't about being touched. It's about being seen asterisk. And very few people, very few men in particular, are capable of offering that kind of presence. You see, it's easy to touch a body. It's easy to rehearse romance, to perform affection, to go through the motions of what intimacy looks like. But it takes a different kind of courage to sit with a woman's truth without flinching, to witness her emotional landscape without trying to fix it or flee from it. Only a small percentage of men ever make it to that level, not because women are inaccessible, but because most people haven't learned how to meet another human being beyond the surface. Emotional intimacy isn't something you stumble into. It requires intentionality. It requires emotional maturity. It requires the willingness to hold space for another person's complexity without needing to reduce it for your own comfort. And for many women, especially those who have done their healing work, who have shed the need to perform or please, this kind of connection is non-negotiable. They've outgrown shallow conversations. They've lost the appetite for being half understood, and they refuse to undress their soul in front of someone who's only interested in their skin. That's why so many women feel unseen even in relationships, because they're touched but not felt, heard but not listened to, desired but not truly valued. A man might love her in theory, but not in practice. He may be drawn to her energy, yet never learn to sit with it long enough to actually her. That kind of knowing doesn't come from watching her habits or memorizing her likes. It comes from entering her inner world and respecting its architecture. It comes from curiosity without entitlement, attention without agenda. A deep woman isn't asking for fairy tales or perfection. She's asking for presence. She wants someone who can look her in the eyes and stay there, not because he's performing affection, but because he's connected to her essence. She wants to speak without censoring her thoughts. She wants to cry without being told to calm down. She wants to reveal her fears without them being used as leverage. That is what intimacy means to her. Not performance, not possession, but partnership. But we live in a culture that rewards the opposite. We glorify detachment, chase, conquest. We've taught men to see vulnerability as weakness, and taught women to settle for attention instead of reverence. So when a woman shows up fully, emotionally naked, most men panic, not because she's doing anything wrong, but because her openness confronts their avoidance. Her honesty disrupts the illusion, and instead of rising to meet her, they retreat, they shrink, or worse, they try to shrink her. And that's the painful irony. The more self-aware a woman becomes, the harder it is for her to find someone who can truly meet her. Not because she's asking for too much, but because so few people have done the inner work to handle what she carries. Her emotional intelligence becomes a mirror, her standards a filter. And only the ones who are grounded enough in themselves, who have confronted their own insecurities, can withstand that kind of reflection. That's why I say only 2% of men ever truly see a woman beyond the surface. It's not an insult. It's a reflection of how disconnected we've become from true intimacy. Because to see someone clearly, you have to see yourself clearly first. You can't recognize depth in someone else if you haven't explored your own. You can't hold emotional space for another person if you're still running from your own feelings. Intimacy starts with inner work, and without it, all we have are performances, scripts we read to each other in place of real connection. So when a man does come along who can witness a woman fully, who can see her pain, her joy, her chaos, her stillness, and not run, not judge, not try to mold her into something smaller, but simply be their that man becomes unforgettable, not because he saved her, not because he solved her, but because he stayed. Because he saw her and chose not to look away. That kind of man isn't the loudest in the room. He's not chasing validation or trying to prove his worth. He's grounded. He's emotionally fluent. He understands that love isn't about possession, it's about presence. He understands that connection isn't built in moments of pleasure, but in moments of truth. He listens when most people would interrupt. He stays when most would run, and in doing so, he becomes the exception, and the woman, this deep, multi-layered, self-aware woman, she knows exactly who she is. She doesn't need saving. She doesn't need convincing. She needs witnessing. She needs to know that the depth she offers won't be met with fear. That her soul won't be treated like a temporary experience, but like the universe it truly is, vast, mysterious, and sacred. Let's stop pretending intimacy is common. It's not. What's common is access. What's common is performance. But true, emotional intimacy, the kind that changes you, requires presence, courage, and truth. Most people don't get there. But those who do, they don't just touch a body, they touch a soul. So here's what I'll leave you with. If you want to love a woman deeply, don't ask for her body, first ask for her story. And when she begins to share it, don't flinch, don't fix. Just stay . Because intimacy is not what you take, it's what you hold . There's something profoundly disruptive about a woman who truly knows herself. Not the kind of knowing that comes from books or borrowed beliefs, but the kind forged in fire, in heartbreak, solitude, reinvention. A woman who has excavated her own pain, questioned her conditioning, and chosen her truth over approval is not just powerful, she's dangerous. Not in the way the world fears harm, but in the way it fears freedom, because a woman who is free from needing validation can't be controlled. And society, for all its talk of empowerment, still struggles with that kind of woman. From the outside, she may seem difficult, misunderstood, maybe even intimidating, but that's because she no longer conforms to the familiar scripts. She doesn't shift to make others comfortable. She doesn't dilute herself to fit into environments that ask her to shrink. She has become fluent in her own voice, and that voice no longer whispers. It claims space, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. The tragedy is that we still live in a world that punishes women for being whole. We reward politeness over authenticity, compliance over clarity, silence over truth. So when a woman dares to know herself, really know herself, she's often met with resistance. People try to box her in, soften her edges, label her as too emotional, too intense, too much. But too much is just code for more than I can handle. And she knows that now, so she no longer internalizes that shame. She recognizes it for what it is, projection. A self-aware woman has usually walked through seasons of being misunderstood. She's been the one who sees too much, feels too deeply, questions too loudly. And for a while, she may have tried to tone herself down, until the cost of betraying her own truth became too high. That's what real awakening looks like. It's not glamorous, it's not always loud, sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like walking away, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. She's learned that love without self-respect is not love, it's longing. That acceptance that demands self-abandonment is not acceptance, it's manipulation, so she chooses differently now. She surrounds herself with people who don't flinch when she speaks her truth, people who don't mistake her confidence for arrogance or her standards for judgment. She no longer entertains relationships that require her to shrink, and that shift, that refusal to play small, makes her magnetic. Not because she's trying to impress, but because people can feel the energy of someone who is rooted in their own being. You can't fake that. Confidence built on external validation crumbles under pressure, but confidence built on self-knowing, that's unshakable. That's the kind of presence that enters a room and changes the atmosphere not through volume, but through vibration. It's important to say this clearly. A woman who knows herself does not hate men. She doesn't compete with them, doesn't try to dominate them. What she refuses to do is submit to dysfunction. She will not participate in relationships where she has to abandon her intuition, dim her intelligence, or suppress her emotional truth. And for some, that will feel threatening, because control often masquerades as love, and when she refuses to play along, people assume she's bitter. But bitterness doesn't speak with this much clarity. Bitterness reacts. Wholeness chooses . In reality, this woman desires connection, real connection. But not at the expense of her soul. She doesn't want a perfect partner. She wants a present one, someone who meets her, not manages her. Someone who sees her light without being intimidated by its brightness. Someone who doesn't need her to perform femininity, but honors the full spectrum of her being, from her softness to her strength, from her vulnerability to her power. The irony is that the more a woman becomes herself, the lonelier the road can feel, because she can no longer unsee the games, the performative love, the empty gestures. Her heart is open, but her standards are high, not because she thinks she's better, but because she finally knows her worth. And worth is not negotiable, it is not up for discussion. It's embodied, and here's the deeper truth. Women like this don't just liberate themselves, they liberate others. Their very existence challenges the systems that benefit from silence and submission. They become examples, not of perfection, but of possibility. They show other women what it looks like to live untamed, to trust themselves, to speak when their voice shakes, to leave when it's hard, to stay when it's right, to rest when they're tired, and to rise when it's time. Their presence says, asterisk, you don't have to apologize for being full. Asterisk, you don't have to wait for permission to be powerful. You don't have to tone it down to be loved. The right people will rise to meet you. The wrong ones will fall away. Let them. So yes, the world often misunderstands women who know themselves. But that misunderstanding is a reflection of its own discomfort, not their value. And eventually, those who once misjudged them will see them clearly, not because the women changed, but because the world is slowly learning how to meet them at their level. If you are that woman, or becoming her, don't shrink. Don't soften your truth to soothe someone else's ego. Don't settle for being half seen when you were born to be whole. You are not here to be digestible. You are here to be undeniable. And if you're listening and you feel the pull to become this kind of woman, understand this. The road is not easy, but it's real, and in a world addicted to illusion, real is rare, and rare is powerful. So I leave you with this. Asterisk, asterisk, be the woman who remembers herself, who reclaims herself, who radiates from within, because a woman in her truth doesn't just change her life. She changes everything around her. Asterisk, asterisk.